Here too. Ooh, welcome. I just got a total bug in my throat here. I'm
Just
so
as you're
happy
ready.
to ready to go live. Um, I am so happy to be here with my friend and colleague Jane Cassano, and we are going to be talking about self-compassion today. And Jane, I'd love for you to just come in and tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then we'll get into a little bit about the why and how that you ended up teaching self-compassion.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Angela. I'm so excited to be here and talk to you about it. I know we've had many conversations about self-compassion. It's just great to be in conversation with you again. And so I came to self-compassion, I think it was two reasons. Professionally, I'm a social worker, so I work with kids who have cancer and their parents. I also work with the general public in private practice. And then, so I was feeling the need that way for myself to cope with what, I was working with, but also skills to work with clients. And then personally, I just gone through a really hard time, and I literally started searching on the internet, what could I do to make the pain sort of lessen, or what should I do? And I went down the mindfulness stream and then came upon self-compassion and took the 8-week course as the beginning for me. And it really just, I think, helped me be easier on myself while I was having difficulty. And it didn't take away, nothing changed necessarily. The pain and all the stuff that I was going through was still there, but I just felt less down on myself, beating on myself. And it just gave me kind of a different way of approaching problems. So that's sort of my background and how I ended up taking the course. And then I went to teacher training, and then we actually got certified in 2021. So that there's lots of steps to the journey, and I've been really grateful for it. So
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, I think that is that noticing the need for it in your work, but it's really the self. I mean, it's so much about, I was reflecting on that today. So much of what I do is because it was like, oh my gosh, I need that. And then also recognizing it in the population that I work with. So for those people that don't actually know what self-compassion, mindfulness self-compassion is, could you just give us a little bit of information about that?
yeah. And, this is my interpretation and how I use self-compassion in my own life. Because of course, like with anything, all these words like self-care, self-compassion, they're all sort of mixed in there for me anyway. So it's like, okay, what does it mean? For me, what I feel self-compassion is, it's really learning and being much more gentler and overall kinder to yourself. That's so broad. But like, I think about my inner dialogue and how much nicer I am to myself now, or at least I catch myself. Maybe I'm not perfect, but it's like, ooh, that critic is up in there.
Who would
right?
be like, honestly, who would be friends with our inner, like the past, your past version? But like sometimes I catch myself because it's right below the surface, and I really work at this, but I'm like, whoa, whoa, that wasn't very kind. Like, don't do
well,
that.
and we're like, we treat ourselves almost like, I always say this, like a criminal. You're no criminal, Jane, because it's so quick to judge and so quick to be very, very mean. And we don't do that for our loved ones. Or if you think about, someone making a mistake and coming to you and saying, Angela, I did this, you'd be like, oh, you're okay. And that was okay. We would never extend that kind of generosity to us. So for me, self-compassion, the first part is about that inner dialogue. And once sort of some of that has been cultivated and you just become more tender and forgiving of yourself, I think other things fall into place. Like you just treat yourself in general better physically and emotionally. And, it sort of all falls in once you tackle kind of some of that constant.
Then that is sort of the spiral would be like that negative and really harsh inner voice, and then shame, and then some way to kind of protect and not show the shame. And then we go into like whatever the coping patterns of that. And it can be a spiral of like, we don't treat ourselves well, we're not eating well then, or we're not tending to
not moving.
Beautiful.
Totally. And it's true. It's so sneaky, I find too. Like you wouldn't necessarily say, oh, these things are all connected. But it really begins with the relationship we have with ourselves. And so
Yes.
self-compassion is really just improving and making that better and desert like worth matching your worth.
Right. Treating ourselves with the same, at least, I mean, the bare minimum, the same respect we treat other people, but also like, because we are with ourselves all the time and like tending to those, we're the only one who gets to know what we need and feel the feelings that we have and be able to tend to them with compassion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's me. I mean, everybody might have their own particular spin and what's most important for them for self-compassion, but that's sort of the lens that kind of has helped me make some big shifts in my own life.
Beautiful. And I think that lived experience of it is so powerful because
Mhm.
I mean, I think gone are the days where we have the perfect teacher, which I mean, just breeds this sense of perfection where we're like sense of supposed to be perfect. And then we always screw up. And so then we're not enough. And I've yet to meet a woman who hasn't had some degree of, I feel like I'm not enough. And
Oh,
so, yeah. So like, I think that teaching from the place of having experienced it and like owning that and sharing it, not trying to keep it, because everybody has stuff. And then being able to speak to it from a lived experience is really powerful. So
yeah.
that you've done that. And
And embrace that we're humans, embrace it.
yeah,
You know, that
yes,
we're all like, I feel already just you saying that, I feel connected to you. It's like, yeah, okay, so she gets me, we get each other.
yeah.
That we all go through this. It's a human
It's so
experience.
true. And I think the people I feel closest to are the ones that they're sharing with me those vulnerable things. But when when I have the courage and I had a huge breakthrough this summer with a friend and it was able to have the courage to say the thing. And we just up-leveled our relationship to a completely different, like the way that we are with each other. And that it's like, and that first thing was having the self-awareness and compassion to say, wait a second, I'm allowed to take up a little bit of space and I want to say this because to bring us closer.
Yeah.
Where before I think, years and years ago, it would be like, I can't let them know I'm going to go just shut down, block off. And then that would create the
Totally.
distance between relationships. So yeah, beautiful.
Totally.
And so, tell us a little bit more. So with in the teaching of it, what are some of the components that are there when you're learning about self-compassion?
Yeah. So, it's a combination of maybe learning concepts that we've never been taught. That's really sad to me that, we grow up here, and we're not really, at least I'll speak for myself. I won't say this for everybody,
Yeah.
but I didn't have anybody necessarily telling me, how to treat myself well and what are the ways to kind of take care of your spirit, your mind, your body, and so in the course, there are definitely, and each week, there are definitely topics that maybe will be kind of new for people,
Yes.
that maybe you've never explored before. But the part that's really powerful is actually going through different meditations and skills and practices that during the actual sessions, to help you live like, okay, so what does it feel like when I actually cultivate this self-compassion? What does it feel like how does it feel differently than what I'm usually moving through life? So it's a real lived, like kind of experiential course.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what, like, where does the mindfulness, I mean, because that when we went from, meditation, and then it became more about mindfulness. And then this is
Yes.
like mindful self-compassion. Can you speak a bit about how that fits in?
Yeah. And again, the mindfulness component, when you think about it, and I'm curious to hear if you've had this experience too. Although, Angela, we've had a lot of conversation about how to like tune into your body and stay connected there. But of course, life gets busy and we tune out so automatically, that we don't even realize. And so we really need that mindfulness piece to kind of bring that awareness of what is actually going on, what's happening here, like what's happening to me. Without that awareness and add that non-judgment piece to it, which is what mindfulness is, what's meant to be, then you can actually do something about it. Because if we don't have that awareness, if we don't approach it with non-judgment, we can't really make any change. So I don't fault myself when I go on autopilot because it just is happening. My brain is doing that. And sometimes it's useful.
Yeah.
but I've really appreciated bringing the mindfulness into this part, because that has been the only way. It's like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
that's what's there.
I love that there's that saying, between the stimulus and the response, there's that gap. And then when we expand that gap, and I think the biggest thing is for me with this, I'll speak from my experience, but is the, like, what am I actually feeling here? Because we go into autopilot, whatever that is, like appease. Okay. Oh my gosh, they're upset. I gotta wait. Whoa, what am I feeling? Or just make it better, or go whatever it is, or just make that feeling stop without actually knowing what it is. And that mindfulness, I also love the saying, be where your hands are. So it's like, oh, right here, right now, what's actually present for me? And then being able to tend to that kind of, that's what you're saying.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. You say it beautifully. And the one of the quintessential questions that we really try to help our participants over the course of the 8 weeks really learn to ask on a frequent basis is, what do I need?
Oh,
that pause, like, what do I need? And even right now, like, you could pause for a second and ask it, and inevitably something will come up. It might be as simple as, holy moly, I haven't had a glass of water in 3 hours. I'm thirsty.
yes.
Or it could be, I'm so frustrated, or I'm so sad. So this question is really just the heart of it, like really getting used to asking. And again, thinking of our loved ones, how often, especially if you see someone struggling, right? You'd say, hey, like, what can I do? What do you need?
Yes.
Such a natural thing we extend to others.
Yeah.
And so we try to turn
that.
Yeah.
So much, and turning that towards yourself. I think that's one of and it's such a simple practice, but a profound practice. And like you said, it's like, we'll push through. I'll go to the bathroom later. I'll have a glass of water later. Like, why am I have to pee. I'm going to go pee now. And just those little, like, micro, that hand on heart, I sometimes like, okay, what do I need right in this moment? And I think for the busy that we have, the push through, or just keep going, the to-do list will never end, or whatever it is that we think we can't afford to have a need, or we just push through. And so I think that recognizing little things, like moment to moment, add up to something really huge from that self-care, like those tending to those feelings. I'm sort of going off here a little bit.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it's exactly it. You're hitting it right on the head.
Moment to moment.
And I'm glad you say little things, because you know what, Angela, sometimes I too, I think about adding something like a practice, or like, it's like, okay, who has time?
Yeah.
But it's really kind of looking at more these small gestures that are embedded in regular things that you're already doing. Like thinking about the drive home from work, how easy is it to just like float off into outer space? Your mind is not, you don't even know how you got from point A to point B.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Where if you thought, on that drive home, I'm going to just say, like, okay, what do I need? As I transition out. Things like that, really trying to make it practical, and hone in on reality of what everyday life is like for people.
Yeah. I think that, and those little things okay, I'm digressing a little bit, but there was this story about how, just intentionally putting in, and not to say that we don't float off and do some things and they're not great, but that sometimes we're putting, like, those micro things, we put garbage in our system without. And so this guy, I just really appreciate it. Again, this is a bit off, but he was like saying, what if I was going to make these brownies, and I get organic, flour and perfect, pasture raised butter and the best cocoa out there, and I'm mixing them, and then I put just a little bit of dog poop in it. Would she eat them? And it's like, ugh, like, no, but yet we do that with crap, the way we speak to ourselves, or we watch TV or do things that make us feel terrible, when it's just like, wait a sec, do I really want to watch this show? Like, I've been really discerning, because it's like, I feel worse when I go on and do that.
Funny. I don't know if I'll ever be able to eat brownies again without asking, is there a little bit of dog poop in here?
I don't want that.
I love that though.
It's a good, yeah, I love it too. Yeah.
Because it's true, because so many of us are like, okay, self-care, okay, I've got to eat clean and I've got my vitamin C for my skin and this and this and this and this. And then all of a sudden we're gone down the rabbit hole.
Totally. And we're talking crap. Like we're just, our inner voice is like demeaning and all that. And we're just like, but I'm trying to be so good. And it's like, well, we can just stop with that compassion. So what are actually some of the benefits of becoming more self?
Oh, you know what? So Kristen Neff and Chris Germer, who developed so this is so evidence-based. That's what I actually love it, because it's not just, oh, here's this thing and let's all try it. So they've done a ton of research on what are the benefits, and just to point a few. So reduced levels of depression, anxiety, improved relationships. So I think because you're just kinder to yourself, you can feel more compassionate towards others. More likely to stick to goals. So, you make that, it's a new year. Oh, I'm going to exercise every single day or whatever. Some people think, if I become self-compassionate, am I going to get things done? I gotta push myself. I gotta be hard on myself to do that. And in fact, what they found was that when you're self-compassionate, using a kinder voice is more motivating and it actually changes you in such a way that you learn you don't have to be hard to make things happen. You just develop a little bit more self-respect and self-love to motivate yourself to do the things because they feel good.
Totally.
You feel good doing it.
Yeah. That was like those subtle shifts. Like I know when I talk to people about meditation or mindfulness, and for myself included, and they'll be like, oh, I'm terrible at it. And it's like, well, first of all,
we're all terrible.
Everyone is. But like when they'd go, oh my God, I can't believe I was thinking again. It's like the reframe of, oh my gosh, I caught that I was thinking again. I brought myself back. Amazing. Look at that. As opposed to what's wrong. I jumped off. So yeah, that more likely to do something when we're not setting ourselves up to fail. Beautiful. Any other benefits?
I mean, the research is kind of that, those are the gist, like it really just, and healthcare workers, reduced level of burnout. Huge. So overall, it seems like approaching yourself that way. And it makes, to me, now that I've learned it and I've been exposed to it, it makes intuitive sense that, because you think about a child, would you berate a child? You didn't go out and exercise, so like you don't deserve, we would never ever approach a child that way. So it's sort of a similar thing. Like, of course they'd be more motivated if they have someone cheering them on, and if it's kind and if it's balanced, so this is not about letting yourself off the hook and just being like, oh, whatever, do whatever to your body and
have cake, go.
It's not at all. It's the opposite. It's more just really, again, that tuning in, and also approaching yourself with much more love and understanding and forgiveness.
Right. Yeah. Well, one thing I know too, like what you said about how we treat children, ideally we're not berating them. We're so kind. And yet what I know from all my work over the years with trauma and things, that when we get triggered and we are talked to, that we go to a younger self that just went to that surviving self. And so then we're not operating from our fullest, wise, current day self. We're operating from a younger version that just is sort of like, really, as one of my teachers says, the watches are out there looking for something that's wrong, versus like really resourced and has the tools to be able to deal with it. So that keeping you in your present day. Yeah.
Totally.
So tell me, so you have a course that you're running, you run them ongoing, I know, but you have one coming up starting next week.
Yeah. So we're starting on January 12th. And so the course is now, I think we've learned so much through COVID. They're online. Lots of pros and cons there. Yeah, we used to be in person. Kelly and I is my co-teacher, and now we're online. And so we really, really work hard at cultivating a very safe space, so that you come, you spend 2 hours with us on a Thursday night. It's really your time to dig deep into these topics. To dabble in meditation. You don't need to have any meditation experience. It does not make a difference whether you do meditate. It just has no bearing. And so we, again, create this cozy little space. You come and we spend the time together, lots of sharing, lots of different exercises. And really the hope is you'll learn something about the topic, because each week is a different focus.
Right.
some examples like difficult emotions,
Mhm.
caregiving, how to manage shame. That's a whole class,
Oh gosh, that's such a
right?
good one. Yeah.
Right.
That's such a, yes,
I know.
please. Yeah.
And it's the one after that class. Everyone's always like, are we going to like, are you going to run like 40 other workshops to
For this
to
one.
talk more about shame? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
so each week is a different exploration of a topic, but really, really what the big hope is that you walk away with a bunch of tools that you can apply when you're in your life.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I mean, and I can say from having knowing you that safe space, I know absolutely to my bones that you create a beautiful container. And it sounds like they're a nice size group. They're intimate enough, but so not huge, but intimate, and I think that one thing, the more I've learned from my own personal practice, but as working with people, group experiences are profound. Like how much we learn from each other. And we ping each other in the most amazing ways and see ourselves in each other. They're so powerful. So
Well, even just
yeah.
this conversation between the two of us, we
Yeah.
just related saying, yeah, like, yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
That happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
that little inner critic is yeah, alive and well.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
totally.
that's really the best part. We're just there kind of delivering the information, but it's really the people in the group, the membership. And I'm going to just brag for a minute and just say that most of the people who are attracted to self-compassion are like-minded. So you're kind of getting people who are like interested in change,
Yeah.
interested in being better for themselves
Yeah.
and for humanity, which right now I just am so moving towards that, like how do we make it better for everybody?
Oh, I spend a lot of time with this too. Like, let my actions make a difference in a positive way in the world. Let me be part of the change that I think is needed.
Yes.
And I think that ripple of self-compassion to ourselves that allows us to be more present and be able to respond in a way that's compassionate to ourselves and to others. Just the ripple of that being is everything that you said, I think is huge, and yes, so needed. Do you find that it's often a lot of either health, like care workers in some way, or people who tend to take care of others first, and that
Lots of caregivers. Yeah.
yeah
Yeah. Lots of, in whatever capacity. Yeah. I
yeah
think, yeah. And, like me, right? You tend to do these things, not prophylactically. You do them
right
in response to something.
right I feel
So it's,
terrible, I've got to do
yeah.
something.
Yeah. I would love for at some point for it to be embedded in schools. I know there's lots of work around the world being done because it's not just about in Canada. This is all over.
Yeah.
So it would be great if we were introduced to these concepts early so we can kind of live them rather than
Absolutely.
like reaction, like, oh God, life is shit. Sorry, am I allowed to swear on
Oh,
here?
yeah, in my role, you absolutely can. Yes, absolutely. But I mean, that to your point too, though, that when we like the ripple, because if we're learning it for ourselves, then naturally we start to model that in our families. And if people have kids, they get to teach their kids or show it, lead by example. And that's so powerful. It's like, oh, they
Yeah.
don't react the same way, or they're more present, or I see them more. They're making themselves more visible, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
In that way. Beautiful. So I'm going to put the link in the comments, but can you just your website where people can find out more?
Yeah. So janecassano.com is my website. And then our mindful self-compassion website is mountainviewcompassion.com. So you can find out about the course in both those places. Yeah. And then they can contact you and we
true.
pass
They
it
can,
along.
yeah.
So yeah, whatever.
Lots of ways. And people can come from anywhere in the world,
Come from anywhere in the
beautiful
world. Yeah.
thing.
It starts at 6:30 and that's the thing about Kelly and I as well, is we're pretty laxed. So, we are fully aware that people have lives and families and, things going on. And so we just make the best of whatever.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's really a time to just try and tune in with everything else, like in the midst
sometimes
of.
those can be such a great reprieve and a sacred space when the world is going. You have that time to be in a group, like-minded group with compassion and allowed to be like fully yourself with whatever's there. Is that is like a healing balm when life can be.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on too. So it's 2 hours and it's Eastern time, starting next week, and then they're ongoing. So if someone can't do this version, they can go to the Mountain View.
Mountain View Compassion. Yeah.
Thank you, mountainviewcompassion.com, and find out more. Then
Yes.
beautiful. Thank you. Is there anything else that you think you'd like people to know, or that you feel called to say about either your experience or this work?
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing I would say, like, if you have an opportunity to do it before a crisis hits, it certainly helps. If you've ever been interested or ever compelled to think, geez, I wish I could just be a little bit better towards myself, because really that's as we said at the beginning, that's our most important relationship. From there stems everything.
Yeah.
And so they're good things to have. And yeah, so if you've ever wondered and you're not feeling it, like, oh, I'm not in crisis, so what do I need an 8-week course? It would be a good time.
That's right. That's yeah. So you don't start digging the well when you're already thirsty. That's the
Yeah,
saying.
absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your
Thank you so
presence.
much,
It's so
Angela.
nice
Yeah, it's
to
so
talk
wonderful
with you.
as always to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so any questions people can, yeah, as Jane said, reach out to me or to Jane, and you can post things in the comment too. I'd love to know any thoughts. And yeah, thank you, Jane. I look
Thanks,
forward to
Angela.
hearing more about the course. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.